Those who pray the chaplet with faith receive healing and blessings upon their family. What happens in the invisible world when you begin to pray? Do the words truly rise to heaven, or does heaven descend to meet them? And if it descends, what changes inside a home, inside a heart, when divine mercy enters quietly through the door of faith? These questions have only one answer, felt not by the mind, but by the soul that prays with trust. When a person begins the chaplet of divine mercy, a sacred movement begins in heaven. The prayer is not just a sound, it is a current that carries light through the dark corners of despair. Each bead touched with faith is like a spark that crosses from the heart of man to the heart of Christ. In that moment, the ordinary space where you are sitting ceases to be ordinary. The walls become witnesses, the air becomes prayer, and your home becomes a place where heaven and earth touch. This is not imagination or emotional illusion, it is spiritual reality. Every act of faith, no matter how small, awakens divine response. When you whisper, "Have mercy on us," you are not repeating empty words. You are declaring your trust in a promise that has no expiration date. The mercy of God is infinite, but it waits for the key of faith to open its floodgates. The chaplet is that key. Some nights, prayer feels heavy. You may feel tired, doubtful, even distant from God. Yet those are the moments when heaven bends lower than ever. When you pray in weakness, you speak the most powerful language of all, the language of surrender. And God never turns away from a heart that surrenders. The family that prays together in such faith becomes a living altar, a dwelling place for the divine presence. It is in that moment that invisible grace begins to travel. It moves through the walls of your home, through the memories of your past, through the fears that keep you awake at night. It reaches those who are sick, those who are far from God, and even those who no longer believe. The prayer you whisper in faith becomes a bridge that others can cross without knowing who built it. The chaplet of divine mercy is not just devotion, it is movement. It is heaven descending into the common hours of human life. Every prayer is a spark of light that travels faster than thought, entering the places where pain once lived. The divine response does not always arrive with thunder or miracle. Sometimes it comes in the form of a soft peace that covers the home like morning light. When heaven touches the earth through your prayer, nothing remains the same. The sick begin to feel hope. The anxious begin to breathe again. And hearts that were distant start to turn toward each other. The grace that flows through mercy does not visit for a moment. It abides, it heals, it restores. And once the door of faith is opened, the light of God refuses to leave. That is the mystery of this prayer. It is not only what you say, but what heaven hears between your words. The soul that prays with love becomes the meeting point between the finite and the eternal. It is there, in that sacred silence, that heaven truly touches the earth, the invisible thread that unites hearts. There is something that happens when one person in a family begins to pray. Even if no one else joins, even if silence fills the rest of the house, a mysterious current starts to move. It is as if the soul that prays pulls on a thread that stretches beyond walls, beyond distance, beyond unbelief. The chaplet of divine mercy does not remain inside the one who prays. It travels, it searches, it touches every heart connected by love. This thread is invisible, but its strength is greater than any chain on earth. When you hold the beads and whisper the words of mercy, that invisible line begins to glow in the spiritual world. It passes through the room of the sick relative, through the confusion of a rebellious child, through the loneliness of someone who no longer believes. You may not see it, but heaven does. And heaven follows it to reach those you are praying for. Every prayer carries within it a direction. It never stops at your lips. God designed mercy to flow, not to stay still. When one heart opens to Him, His light passes through that soul like electricity through a wire. It reaches another heart and another, until the whole family is surrounded by the same light. You might never know the moment it happens. You might never hear the sigh of relief from the one who suddenly feels peace for the first time in years. But it happens. Grace moves silently, and its silence is its power. There are homes where no one speaks of faith anymore, where bitterness has grown like roots in the floor, where forgiveness feels impossible. Yet the prayer of one person can begin to loosen those roots. One voice crying, "Have mercy on us," can shift the atmosphere. It is not the sound that matters. It is the faith behind it. The one who believes, even when standing alone, becomes the anchor of mercy for everyone tied to them. This invisible thread does not judge. It does not demand that others understand what you are doing. It simply works. It is love in motion. Sometimes those who resist faith the most are the first to feel its touch. They may not say it, they may not even realize it, but deep within them something begins to stir. A memory of God, a longing for peace, a pull toward forgiveness. And when that happens, a chain reaction begins. The one who prayed feels renewed strength. The one who was far away feels unexplainable comfort. A spiritual heartbeat starts to synchronize across generations. What was divided begins to unite again. That is how divine mercy works. Unseen, unstoppable, and always directed by love. No family is too broken, no distance too far, for the mercy of Christ to reach through it. The thread stretches as far as it must go. It wraps around the wounded, the lost, and the forgotten, pulling them gently toward the same source, the heart of Jesus. And all of it begins with a single person who dares to pray, believing that one act of faith can save many. The hidden power in the words of mercy. Every word spoken in prayer has weight, but the words of the chaplet carry a power that transcends understanding. For the sake of His sorrowful passion, have mercy on us and on the whole world. They sound simple, almost ordinary, yet they contain the deepest truth of the gospel. Within these few words lies the mystery of redemption, the echo of the cross, and the living pulse of divine compassion moving through time. When these words are spoken with faith, they vibrate through both the visible and the invisible. They travel farther than sound and faster than thought. They are recognized in heaven not as requests, but as reminders of a promise sealed by the blood of Christ. Each repetition is not the same as the last. Every time you say it, something shifts. The more you speak them, the more they take root inside your soul, aligning your heart with the rhythm of divine mercy. To the distracted mind, repetition may seem mechanical, but to heaven, it is music. Each word builds a pattern of faith, weaving mercy into the soul until it becomes part of who you are. It is not about convincing God to act. It is about allowing His mercy to shape your heart into the image of His Son. These are not empty words. They are instruments through which grace flows. When you pray the chaplet, you are repeating not what you want, but what Jesus Himself asked humanity to say in reparation and trust. There is a sacred precision in the way these words move. For the sake of His sorrowful passion is not a plea for pity. It is an acknowledgement of what was already done for us. You are invoking the greatest act of love ever shown to mankind. The moment you say it, you are standing at the foot of the cross, under the fountain of blood and water that flowed from his heart. Have mercy on us, and on the whole world, is not a distant wish. It is an offering. You are asking that the same mercy that saved you be poured out on everyone, without exception. This prayer transforms the one who prays it. Each repetition cleanses thoughts, softens wounds, and lifts hidden burdens. The words begin to echo through your home, changing the atmosphere little by little. They carry peace into conflict, strength into weakness, and hope into despair. You may not feel the change at first, but heaven does. Angels recognize those words and respond to them. Saints hear them and join their intercession. Every "Have mercy" builds a wall of light around your family, a protection born not from fear, but from faith. Many people look for elaborate ways to reach God, but the power of this prayer is found in its simplicity. Mercy is not earned through complexity. It is received through trust. The words of the chaplet are keys that open hearts before they open heaven. They are reminders that the wounds of Christ are not ancient history. They are alive, healing, and present in every syllable of this prayer. When the last "Have mercy on us" is spoken, the echo remains. It continues in the unseen world, working where it is most needed. That is the hidden power of these words. They never fade, they never fail, and they never return empty. Each one carries mercy, and mercy never loses its way. When faith speaks louder than despair, there comes a moment in every life when hope feels like it has vanished. The diagnosis arrives. The silence grows heavier. The prayer feels unanswered. In those moments, despair begins to whisper its lies. It tells you that God is far away, that nothing will change, that your suffering is meaningless. Yet right there, in that dark space, faith has its chance to speak. The chaplet becomes the voice that rises above the noise, a voice that refuses to let despair have the final word. When you pray, for the sake of his sorrowful passion, you are not escaping your pain. You are transforming it. You are declaring that suffering does not define you. Mercy does. Despair may shout with fear, but faith speaks softly with certainty. And the soft voice is stronger, because it is born not from emotion, but from trust. To say, "Jesus, I trust in you," when everything hurts, is not weakness. It is the highest form of courage. It is choosing light while standing in darkness. Faith does not always remove the cross, but it changes the way you carry it. The one who prays with faith is not pretending that life is easy. They are choosing to believe that God's hand is still holding theirs, even when they cannot feel it. This is the kind of prayer that heaven honors. The chaplet spoken through tears carries more power than 1,000 words spoken without conviction. Every word uttered in pain becomes a declaration of victory over despair. The world teaches that strength means control, but in faith, true strength is surrender. When you reach the end of your own solutions and finally say, "Have mercy on us," you open the door for God to act. It is then that miracles begin to unfold, not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. Sometimes the healing comes to the body, other times to the heart, but it always comes, because mercy cannot be withheld from the soul that trusts. Despair thrives in isolation, but faith creates connection. When one person in a family chooses to believe while everyone else has given up, that act of trust begins to shift the entire house. It breaks the silence that despair built. It reminds the home that darkness does not have the power to last. The chaplet transforms that fragile moment of fear into a meeting place between your suffering and Christ's passion. There, the impossible becomes possible, not through your effort, but through His mercy. Faith does not deny pain, it redeems it. It looks at the same reality as despair, but sees it differently. Where despair sees an ending, faith sees a beginning. The one who prays the chaplet learns that miracles often arrive disguised as endurance, as peace in the middle of chaos, as strength when strength should be gone. And that quiet endurance is proof that heaven has heard you. Every time you choose to pray, instead of surrendering to hopelessness, you are proclaiming a truth that shakes the darkness. God is still here. Mercy is still stronger. And no matter how heavy the cross, faith will always speak louder than despair. Mercy that passes through generations. Every act of prayer echoes beyond the moment it is spoken. The chaplet of Divine Mercy is not bound by time. It reaches backward and forward, touching lives that came before you and those that will come after. When you pray it, you are standing in a sacred stream that began at the cross and flows through every generation that has ever believed. What you say today becomes a seed of mercy planted in your family's history, growing silently into blessings you may never live to see. There are wounds that families carry for decades: unforgiveness, pride, addictions, conflicts that seem impossible to end. These are not just human patterns. They are spiritual scars passed down like invisible chains. But mercy is stronger than inheritance. When you pray the chaplet, you are calling on the blood and water that flowed from the heart of Jesus to cleanse those lines. You are inviting God to heal what your ancestors could not, to forgive what they never confessed, and to restore what was broken long before you were born. In heaven, nothing is forgotten, and no prayer is lost. The soul that prays with faith becomes a bridge between generations. Your prayer today can reach a grandfather who died without peace, a child not yet born, or a loved one who has turned away from God. Mercy does not stop at the edge of the present. It travels through eternity, weaving together what time has torn apart. Every "Have mercy on us" sends light backward into the past and forward into the future, creating a lineage touched by grace. Some people believe that blessings die with those who lived holy lives, but mercy multiplies. The grandmother who prayed every night for her children left behind more than memories. She left open doors of grace. The father who prayed the chaplet in secret for his family passed on protection that will outlive his name. The mother who whispers the prayer beside her child's bed is shaping faith that will awaken generations from now. Mercy never stops where it begins. It keeps flowing through bloodlines, sanctifying everything it touches. It is not superstition. It is divine design. God's mercy was meant to be inherited, not hoarded. When one heart opens to Him, others are drawn into that same current of grace. Your family may not all pray, but they are all within reach of the mercy you call upon. Each decade you complete sends ripples into their lives, softening hearts, healing memories, and guiding steps. You may not see it, but somewhere a reconciliation happens, a temptation weakens, a new peace is born. The chaplet is not only a shield for the living, it is a light for the souls of the departed. When you pray, you are helping those in need of purification, those who long to see God face to face. And in return, their intercession blesses you and those you love. The communion of saints is not a theory. It is an eternal exchange of mercy, that never ends. When you take the beads in your hands, remember this: you are not praying alone. You are part of a divine story being written through generations. The mercy that flows through your prayer today may be the very grace that saves someone you will never meet on this earth. And when your time ends, that same mercy will continue through the lips of those who learned from your example that the heart of a family is not its blood, but its prayer. The hour of miracles. Every day has a sacred moment when heaven bends closer to earth, the hour when mercy flows with unstoppable power. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the hour when Christ gave his final breath and opened his heart for all humanity. At that moment, time itself was touched by eternity. The veil between the divine and the human became thin, and from that instant on, every day carries a memory of that sacrifice, a doorway through which grace still enters the world. To understand the mystery of this hour is to understand that mercy is not random. It is ordered, intentional, and deeply personal. At 3 o'clock, the wounds of Christ are not just remembered. They are active channels of grace. The prayer of the chaplet spoken at this time joins directly with that moment on Calvary, uniting the suffering of the present with the redemption of the cross. When you begin to pray at that hour, you are not repeating history. You are standing within it. There is a silence in the world at 3 o'clock that few people notice. While others rush through their day, heaven waits. It is as if creation pauses for a breath, ready to receive anyone who remembers the Passion. The person who kneels in that moment and whispers, "For the sake of his sorrowful passion," draws down mercy not only upon themselves, but upon the entire world. The power of that prayer does not depend on eloquence or worthiness. It depends only on faith. One heart turned toward the cross can change the spiritual atmosphere around it. This is why so many miracles are born at this hour. Not always the kind that fill headlines, but the quiet ones. The reconciliation of a family, the unexpected peace after years of anxiety, the healing that doctors cannot explain. These are not coincidences. They are the natural fruit of divine timing. When you align your heart with the rhythm of mercy, heaven responds. God's timing is perfect, and the hour of mercy is proof that he always makes himself available. The saints understood this mystery well. They did not see 3 o'clock as just a number on a clock, but as a living invitation. It is the hour when you can speak to Jesus as to a friend, reminding him of his own love, asking him to remember his promise of mercy. And he does. Every soul that calls on him in that hour receives attention from heaven. The blood and water that flowed from his heart still flow now, cleansing and renewing all who seek him. If you have ever felt distant from God, try to meet him at this hour. Let the chaplet be your voice. Whisper it from your workplace, your car, your bed, wherever you are. You don't need candles or altars. You need only faith. The mercy that once saved the world is the same mercy that can heal your family today. When 3 o'clock arrives, heaven opens its gates wide. And if even one soul remembers that sacrifice and calls upon Jesus with trust, miracles begin to move. The hour passes, but its grace remains. It lingers in the air, in the heart, in the home. Because every day, at that same sacred moment, heaven waits once more for someone to believe. The battle for the soul of the family. Every family lives in the middle of a battle that cannot be seen. It is not fought with noise or weapons, but with choices, silence, and prayer. It is the struggle between light and darkness for the hearts that share the same roof. The enemy's greatest desire is not to destroy nations. it is to divide homes. Because when a family loses unity, love weakens and faith begins to fade. Yet there is one prayer that stands as a shield between the family and destruction: the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. The battle does not begin outside. It begins within. It starts in impatience, in harsh words, in pride that refuses to forgive. These are the quiet attacks that wound the soul of a home. But the one who prays the chaplet turns the tide. Each "Have mercy on us" drives away bitterness, confusion, and spiritual heaviness. It invites heaven into the middle of conflict. It gives peace a chance to speak louder than anger. The home that prays together is not a perfect home, but it becomes a fortified one. When you begin to pray, the invisible world responds. Light enters the rooms that were once filled with tension. Angels stand guard at the door. The atmosphere changes, not because your problems disappear, but because the presence of God takes authority over them. The chaplet is not only a plea for mercy, it is a declaration of spiritual order. It reminds every dark force that this house belongs to Christ, that His blood covers every wall, and that His mercy reigns where fear once ruled. The enemy knows that the family united in prayer is unbreakable. That is why distraction, fatigue, and misunderstanding often rise the moment you decide to pray. It is not coincidence, it is resistance. But each time you push through it, you are winning ground. Every decade completed is like a sword of light drawn against despair. The one who perseveres in prayer becomes a warrior, not through aggression, but through endurance. Mercy is not weakness. It is the most powerful weapon in heaven's arsenal. There are times when peace seems impossible, when illness, financial strain, or betrayal create walls between loved ones. In those moments, the chaplet becomes more than prayer. It becomes intercession. You begin to pray not only for healing, but for deliverance, for spiritual restoration. And heaven answers in ways you cannot measure. A conversation begins that softens hearts. A word of forgiveness is spoken. A night's rest returns after weeks of torment. These are not coincidences. They are victories of mercy. Every bead you touch, every sigh you lift, every word you speak becomes part of this unseen war. You may never witness the battles your prayer wins, but the effects are real. The family that prays together is covered in a protection that cannot be explained. The cross of Christ becomes the center of the home. Arguments lose their poison, and forgiveness begins to breathe again. In this life, peace is not the absence of battle. It is the presence of God in the middle of it. The Chaplet of Divine Mercy trains the soul to fight without hatred, to love without fear, and to trust without seeing. And every time you pray it, you remind hell that this war has already been won. The silent miracles. No one sees. Not every miracle arrives with noise. Some come quietly, almost unnoticed, like dawn breaking behind clouds. The Chaplet of Divine Mercy often works this way, gently, silently, transforming what the eyes cannot see. While the world looks for signs and wonders, heaven prefers to heal in secret, touching wounds no one else knows exist. These are the miracles that go unseen, yet they are the ones that last the longest. There are families where nothing seems to change, where illness remains, finances struggle, or distance between hearts continues. And yet, beneath the surface, something sacred begins to move. The prayer of one faithful soul starts to soften the atmosphere, to cleanse the home of heaviness. The pain does not vanish overnight, but it loses its power to poison the heart. The same words repeated every day. Have mercy on us and on the whole world. begin to do invisible work, healing thoughts, memories, and emotions. The greatest miracles are not always about what we receive, but about who we become. The person who prays the chaplet learns patience where there was only frustration, finds forgiveness where there was resentment, and feels peace even when circumstances remain uncertain. This is how God works. He first heals the soul before he heals the body, because the soul is eternal, and once healed, it changes everything around it. Sometimes the miracle is the strength to keep praying when everything says to stop. Sometimes it's the ability to sleep after months of anxiety, or the courage to forgive someone who never apologized. These are quiet resurrections, moments when life returns to the heart that had grown tired of believing. They may not be seen by others, but heaven celebrates them as victories of grace. Mercy has its own rhythm. It does not always rush. It unfolds. The one who remains faithful in prayer begins to see how the smallest blessings fit together into something greater. A phone call that arrives at the right time. A doctor who says, "I don't understand, but you're getting better." A conversation that ends in peace instead of anger. The hand of God is steady but subtle. It does not force, it restores. There is beauty in the hidden miracle because it teaches humility. It reminds you that God's work is not about applause or recognition. It is about transformation. The family that continues to pray even when no results appear is building a foundation of faith that no storm can shake. Each prayer, even when whispered in the dark, is counted, heard, and stored in heaven. When you look back one day, you will see how much mercy was at work in the silence. You will realize that the unanswered prayers were not ignored. They were ripening. That the pain you thought was pointless was shaping compassion within you. That the nights you spent praying alone were the nights heaven was closest. The chaplet teaches the soul to see differently. It shows that the absence of a visible miracle is not the absence of God. It is His way of inviting you to trust more deeply, to believe without seeing. And in that hidden trust lies the greatest miracle of all, the quiet transformation of a heart that refuses to give up on mercy. When God answers through another person, divine mercy often moves in ways that the human heart does not expect. We pray for miracles, and sometimes God sends them, not through sudden healing or visible signs, but through people. A word spoken at the right time, a hand that helps when you've lost strength, a friend who appears when loneliness feels unbearable. These are not coincidences. They are answers wearing a human face. God's mercy has many voices, and sometimes it speaks through those who cross our path. When you pray the chaplet with faith, you open your life to the mysterious ways God chooses to respond. You may expect the answer to come from heaven, but often it comes from the ground beneath your feet, from someone who carries His presence without even realizing it. The grace you called upon begins to move, arranging encounters, changing hearts, guiding decisions. What feels like chance is divine orchestration. The person who calls to check on you, the doctor who refuses to give up, the stranger who offers a word that reaches your soul, all are part of a plan that began the moment you said, "Have mercy on us." The human heart is God's favorite instrument. He rarely acts in isolation. He moves through relationship. Mercy flows through people the way light flows through glass. It keeps its essence, but takes on new color as it passes through. Sometimes the one you pray for becomes the one who comforts you. Sometimes the one who once caused pain becomes the vessel of healing. Divine mercy does not follow logic. It follows love. You might not always recognize His answer. It can come disguised as a delay, a disappointment, or even a silence that forces you to look deeper. But when you remain faithful, you begin to notice how everything aligns. That unexpected forgiveness, that open door, that moment of courage you didn't have yesterday, all of it is part of His response. God never forgets a prayer. He simply chooses the path that will bring not only relief, but transformation. The chaplet trains your soul to see differently. It teaches you to look for God not only in the miraculous, but in the ordinary. When you pray for mercy, you become sensitive to it. You start to see it in the kindness of others, in small gestures that carry eternal weight. This awareness itself is a form of healing. It reminds you that you are not alone, that God's love is always active, always near, always present through someone willing to love in His name. Mercy flows in both directions. Sometimes you are the one receiving it, and other times you are the one being sent. Your own pain may become the tool God uses to reach another. The same prayer that healed you will one day heal someone through you. That is how mercy works. It multiplies, it spreads, it never stops at one heart. So when you pray and it seems heaven is silent, look around. The answer may already be standing before you, speaking softly, extending grace. God's mercy does not always thunder. Sometimes it whispers through another person's compassion. The chaplet opens your eyes to recognize those whispers. And when you do, you realize the miracle you asked for was never far away. It was walking beside you all along. A family covered by divine light. There is a moment, after all the prayers, all the tears, all the quiet acts of trust, when something sacred happens. It may not come with sound or vision, but its presence is unmistakable. The home that prays the chaplet of divine mercy begins to carry a light that cannot be explained. It is not the light of candles or lamps. It is the radiance of grace. The family that once struggled with fear, division, or doubt finds itself surrounded by a peace that feels otherworldly. This is what it means to live under divine light. Not to be free of trials, but to be protected within them. When mercy becomes the language of a home, darkness loses its authority. The walls that once echoed with argument or silence now hold prayer. The same rooms that saw pain now witness forgiveness. The light that flows from Christ's heart does not simply visit, it stays. It settles over the family like a mantle, guarding, healing, and guiding. You may not always notice it, but those who enter will feel it. The peace of a praying home is unmistakable. A family covered by divine light does not escape suffering. It transforms it. Illness becomes a place of compassion. Struggle becomes a classroom for patience. Every challenge becomes another opportunity to trust. And through it all, Jesus remains at the center, not as a guest, but as a living presence. His mercy weaves through every conversation, every meal, every decision, reminding each person that they are not alone. The more faithfully the chaplet is prayed, the stronger this light becomes. It seeps into memories, reconciling what was broken. It enters the future, preparing unseen blessings. It wraps around the present moment like a promise that will never be withdrawn. The blood and water that once poured from the heart of Christ continue to flow through that home, silently cleansing and sanctifying everyone inside. Many people search for signs that God is near. They chase voices, visions, or grand experiences. But divine light rarely comes that way. It arrives quietly through perseverance in prayer. It reveals itself in the calm after the storm, in laughter returning to a weary family, in love that refuses to fade. It is not a flash, it is a presence. It is not momentary, it is eternal. The family that prays the chaplet together becomes a living testimony of that light. Others will see something in them that cannot be explained, a strength that doesn't come from comfort, a hope that survives loss, a joy that exists even in sorrow. That is mercy alive. That is heaven touching earth once again. When night falls and the beads rest in your hands, remember this truth. Every word you've spoken, every prayer you've offered, has built a wall of light around those you love. No darkness can cross it. No fear can dissolve it. The mercy you have invoked will remain, guiding your family long after your voice has grown silent. Because when a home chooses to live in mercy, it becomes what it was always meant to be: a dwelling of God's presence, a reflection of His eternal light, a sanctuary where heaven and earth meet.